Fake HOA VP tried to steal parts from an army truck. I'm Jake Miller, a 28-year-old mechanic and proud grandson of a war veteran. I fix engines, honor history, and mind my own business. The story started when a guy named Ron Beasley moved into our quiet neighborhood. He wasn't elected, wasn't appointed. He just declared himself vice president of a fake HOA he made up. Ron wore a tight black polo with a huge fake HOA enforcement logo, strutted around like he was king of the cul-de-sac, and had the nerve to think he could tell lifelong residents how to live his newest obsession. My granddad's vintage army truck, a 1944 Dodge WC Series vehicle, lovingly restored and sitting proudly under our carport. To Ron, it was an eyesore. To me, it was a piece of living history. And when words didn't work, Ron decided he'd take matters and parts into his own hands. The first warning was a slip of paper taped sloppily to my garage claiming the truck violated HOA bylaw 37 no obsolete vehicles. It was a joke. Everyone in the neighborhood knew there was no real HOA. Still, I politely tossed it in the trash. Ron wasn't deterred. A few days later, he rang my doorbell, smug and puffed up clipboard in hand. He gave a whole speech about how my abandoned military truck was bringing down property values and how the board had voted to issue a $500 fine. I laughed in his face. There was no board, no signatures, just Ron and his imagination. But Ron didn't like being laughed at. He started patrolling my house, parking across the street, glaring for hours. He would snap pictures of my truck like he was building a criminal case. Some neighbors grumbled, but stayed quiet. Most folks just rolled their eyes and said, "Ignore him." I did until that Saturday. It was just after noon, brutally hot, when I heard metal on metal clanging from the driveway. I ran outside and my heart sank. There was Ron crouched at the truck wrench in one hand, crowbar in the other. He had already ripped off one of the fenders and was working on the spare tire mount. "What are you doing?" I yelled, sprinting across the yard. Ron stood up slow, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked downright proud of himself. "Removing non-compliant equipment per HOA regulations," he said smoothly, as if he hadn't just committed blatant theft. "There is no HOA. I barked, "You're trespassing and stealing." He smirked, lifting the crowbar like a trophy. Ron raised the crowbar like he was about to take another swing at the truck, and that's when I stepped between him and the metal heart hammering in my chest. "You lay one more hand on it," I said low and deadly, "and you'll be explaining yourself to the sheriff." He laughed, a cocky, ugly sound. "The sheriff won't lift a finger? Everyone hates that rust bucket. I'm doing the whole block a favor." By now, neighbors were stepping onto their porches, drawn by the noise. Phones were coming out. A couple of folks across the street already had their cameras aimed straight at Ron, but he didn't notice or didn't care. "This vehicle is condemned by HOA standards." He barked loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm authorized to impound it." "You're authorized to do nothing." I snapped. "You made up this HOA. There's no authority, no vote, nothing. You're a liar and a thief." Ron sneered, stepping closer until we were practically chest to chest. He smelled like sweat and desperation. "Move," he growled, raising the crowbar threateningly. I didn't flinch, and neither did Mr. Alvarez, my neighbor from 2 houses down, who suddenly appeared on my right. "Put it down, Ron," Mr. Alvarez said, voice firm. "You're way out of line." Others gathered behind him. Mrs. Daly, the Hendersons, even old Mr. Clarkson with his cane. "You're not touching that truck." Someone said. "Not on our watch," said another. Ron looked around, suddenly realizing he wasn't the king of the block anymore. But he was too deep to back down gracefully. He jabbed the crowbar toward me again. "This is private HOA business. None of you have authority." Right then, like fate had scripted it, the flashing red and blue lights rolled onto the street. A police cruiser, then another, parked right at the end of my driveway. Deputy Harris, a mountain of a man and a friend of my late granddad, stepped out, adjusting his belt as he approached. "What's going on here?" Harris rumbled. I didn't even have to answer. The sight said it all. Ron, crowbar in hand, truck parts scattered on the driveway, a crowd of witnesses and plenty of cameras still rolling. Ron straightened up, fake confidence oozing. "Officer, I was enforcing community regulations, removing unauthorized abandoned vehicles." Harris raised an eyebrow. "And you have legal documentation for this removal?" Ron blinked, opened his mouth, closed it. Sweat poured down his face. I I represent the HOA, he stammered. Harris tilted his head. There's no registered HOA here. Checked that myself last month after you tried pulling this same stunt on the Hendersons. The color drained from Ron's face. You're trespassing, Harris continued calmly, and vandalizing registered historical property, which just so you know carries a federal-level penalty. The crowbar slipped from Ron's hand, clanging to the pavement. Hands behind your back. Harris ordered. Ron tried to protest, but it was useless. He was cuffed and read his rights right there with the entire block watching and filming. Neighbors cheered, someone even started a slow clap. As Ron was loaded into the cruiser, he finally looked at me, not with rage, but pure, pitiful panic. I didn't say a word. Justice didn't need an audience. Later that afternoon, as I reattached the fender, Ron had tried to steal. Neighbors stopped by, not just to watch, but to help. Mrs. Daly brought cold lemonade. Mr. Alvarez handed me a brand new American flag to rehang on the truck. The Henderson kids offered to repaint the mailbox Ron had vandalized months ago. That day, something bigger than just a truck was repaired. The community Ron had tried to bully came back stronger. United and standing there under the setting sun, wiping grease from my hands, I realized something. You don't need a title, a fake badge, or a loud voice to lead a neighborhood. You just need to stand up once when it matters most.